What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Big Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host. The first day of the divisional round is done. Oh my God, look at John Breech is tweaking in his seat because he knows what's there. Okay, Ryan Wilson and John Breech joining me to break down not an electric first day of the divisional games. An interesting first day, but not electric. The two teams who had byes were substantially better than the other teams. And if not for a Patrick Mahomes injury to his ankle, the Chiefs probably roll the Jaguars. We'll get into all that. The reason, Wilson, Breech is tweaking, and he's tweaking hard. He's doing the Andy Dalton, there's a path thing right now with the Bengals to win the Super Bowl. Because he knows that Mahomes is banged up. And if the Bengals win on Sunday, they have to just beat a injured Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy or Jalen Hurts or that. Like, it is wide open for the Bengals to win the Super Bowl. Wilson, are you excited as I am about Breech's hopes and dreams being crushed?
I thought this Saturday's games I thought it was pretty fun to watch. I mean, if Billy will tell you, he had a great time watching the Eagles play. And I thought the first game was actually close. It wasn't close up until the moment that Arden Key maliciously tried to break Patrick Mahomes' leg. But Breech, knowing you for as long as I've known you, and you are incredibly positive, I would imagine, also knowing your passive-aggressive Steelers nature, I would imagine that you were like, oh, Patrick Mahomes went out. And you probably weren't sure he was coming back after halftime, and maybe your hopes were dashed a bit when he did return. But I'm guessing pregame and postgame, the Breech meter is probably about the same place it started as it is now.
Yeah, there was a minor fluctuation. But you know what? The more important thing is that I do feel like now that we got these Saturday games out of the way, that the six best teams in the NFL are the ones that are left standing right now. You know, when you talk about the Chiefs, the Eagles, then you have the main events on Sunday with the Bills, Bengals, Cowboys, 49ers, that I feel like you can rank those six teams any way you want, but I felt like those six were the best six in the NFL for the 2022 season. So it is kind of fitting that those are the six remaining teams.
The NFL expanding the playoffs is 100% driven out of greed because, a $14 billion company needs more money. As almost always, the NFL has stumbled into a beneficial outcome of their greed. And it's that if you are the one seed, I do like the idea that the only team in each conference that gets a bye is the one seed. And it's clearly beneficial. Like, it's very clearly beneficial. If the Chiefs had a full-blown healthy Patrick Mahomes for that whole game, they slaughtered the Jaguars. The Eagles destroyed the Giants. And there should be a reward for being the best team in your conference. I like that idea.
Yeah. Also, we'll talk about the second game later. I'm guessing we're starting with the Chiefs. So I'll start with the Chiefs.
By the way, I want to throw this out there. This is time sensitive. It's a money line parlay. For those watching the late night, we do Brandon Moreno in the UFC fight minus 135. With the Bengals to win outright in Buffalo, plus 210, and the 49ers to win outright, minus 205. That pays 7-1. I'm done now.
Oh, okay. I was just looking something up. So, you mentioned that the Jaguars probably get rolled. Maybe, and I think in both games, the takeaway for me was that both the Jaguars and Giants are a reflection of their head coaches, respectively. And as we go into the head coaching hiring season, it's just stresses the importance of getting the fit right because, Collinsworth sort of danced around and Tirico came out and just said, look, man, Urban Meyer sucked basically because that place felt so incredibly toxic throughout the Urban Meyer, short tenure. And even Doug Peterson apparently insinuated to Collinsworth and Tirico in an August preseason game that he wasn't sure if guys were even going to show up for offseason workouts. So the lengths they've come in such a short period is a shout out to Doug Peterson and obviously the players stepping up, and they have a lot of good young players. So this is a loss, but as Trevor Lawrence said after the game, we're going to keep coming back, and I don't doubt him one bit. And there's no real downside for me, Breech, in terms of how the Jaguars played in this game because they ran up against Andy Reid off a bye. Even a one-legged Patrick Mahomes turns out to be pretty good. You're playing in Kansas City, and the fact that they got there That's the moral victory we talk about, not the Vikings getting their doors blown off by the Giants after winning 13 games.
Yeah, I mean, they're the first team in NFL history.
You jumped on me there, but yes, I agree.
The first team in NFL history to get the number 1 overall pick and win a playoff game, or finish with the worst record and have the number 1 overall pick and win a playoff game the following year. And that is all the testament to the turnaround is, hey, we brought in the right coach. We don't have a coach that just flies home on his own and goes to college bars at night. We have a Super Bowl winning coach who is very well qualified for the job. And I thought Jacksonville played a great game.
Yep.
And obviously, I do agree with Brinson that if Mahomes is fully healthy, Kansas City probably wins by 2 touchdowns, but he wasn't. And if Jamal Agnew doesn't fumble at the very end of the game and Jacksonville's going to cut the lead to 27-24, who knows what happens after that. And so, I mean, this game was entertaining. And when you have a 9.5-point underdog, you don't know what you're going to get. You might get a blowout like you got with Giants-Eagles, or you get something like this. And I thought this was a great game for all 4 quarters.
Yeah, dude, this game was fun. The Eagles game was like oh God, we really have to podcast with Billy tonight. By the way, the teaser in the cover in the Chiefs Jaguars game is sort of correct me if I'm wrong. Like 5 or 10 years ago, teams didn't kick the field goal first
because they're dumb.
Right, but they would just like go for it on 4th down, and you would not get it, and then it'd be over, and you'd win by the other team would win by 10. That's a pretty huge sea change in terms of like spread coverage, right?
Yeah, Breech mentioned it in our little chat, and I wasn't sure what he was talking about because I thought that was just sort of, it's common knowledge amongst us, and not that we're smart because,
we're pretty smart.
Compared to Billy, we're smart because he's an Eagles fan.
Jeez.
I'll get to this in a second.
Oh, up high, down hard.
Billy so desperately wants to hit that in.
Volume was down low there.
Billy so desperately wants to come in here. You just wait a second, Billy. You can. But yeah, so I was shocked when Breech mentioned it. Not shocked, but sort of surprised. But he's right. And Doug Peterson appears to be in much the same way that baseball folks were 15 years ago are taking advantage of the inefficiencies in the way that other coaches coach. Not to call out names, but Todd Bowles is incredibly conservative. And at times it costs his team points. Mike Tomlin's been conservative at times. And, we can go down the list of guys that make their fans angry in terms of just ill-timed calls. So, yeah, that was smart, I guess. But maybe it's just more of a case of doing what you're supposed to be doing as a head coach and paying attention. I don't know. Breech.
Well, I mean, obviously everybody who bet on this game was mad because Jacksonville was 7.5, 8.5, 9.5-point underdog, depending on where you got them during the week. And so the Chiefs were covering the whole time until old Doug Peterson, Dougie P, sent out Riley Patterson for that 48-yard field goal. But to Wilson's point, in our Slack channel, right when Jacksonville got the ball, I said that they need to kick a field goal as soon as they get in field goal range because you have to get 2 scores. And if you keep driving for the touchdown, score a touchdown with 3 seconds left, we still have to get an onside kick. And so to leave yourself as much time as possible, you get the field goal first. And that is what Doug Peterson did. And so smart on Doug. I thought he coached a pretty good game. And man, this was just really, I don't even know who Chad Henne, was he the star of the game? I mean, the fact that
Breech, you're stealing my talking points. I was going to ask you.
That's twice though he's done that. He did that against the Browns.
Right, 2 years ago.
Remember the Browns beat the Steelers? Like they kicked their ass in the playoffs, and then they played the Chiefs the next week, and Andy Reid went for it on 4th and 1, and Chad Henne just whip it to Tyreek Hill. Sorry, I know the Steelers thing wasn't necessary. My apologies.
That's okay. You got your hair plug treatment today. You're feeling a little spry.
Sorry, the UFC fight was on in the living room. It was very loud, and my phone died.
But yeah, no, Breech, it's funny you mentioned that because I was just going to say I was going to have to make a lot of qualifiers other than Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. He's your MVP. And there's still like 5 or 6 other guys. Jalen Watson, for example, had a fantastic game as well. The 7th round pick out of Washington State, I think that's where he went. But yeah, Chad Henne's ability to come off the bench and, stone cold. He is no Gardner Minshew. He is no Chase Daniel. He is every 100% Chad Henne. And Brinson's right. 2 years ago, the Browns thought they were going to go to the AFC Championship game. I know Chad Henne made sure that didn't happen. The week before, of course, they did beat the crap out of the Steelers.
Like, Breech, what are you? You're what, 53?
He's younger than you.
I'm kidding. Like Chad Henne's 37, man. It's pretty. Like, it's kind of interesting. You sort of wonder why more teams don't do this, and I guess you have to have an established like stud quarterback. But instead of just having this young, like Andy Reid's got this old guy behind Mahomes who knows the system, who's ready to go. It's sort of like Jim Sorgi was with Peyton. Like,
Well, I think
he's made some big plays, man.
I think you're answering your own question because just let's look to San Francisco. How old's that quarterback? I think it's all about the system, and it's all about.
Yes, this is correct too. But by the way, Scott Murphy correctly points out, I'm only noting this field goal. No, I mean the early field goal attempt resulted in the Eagles or the Jaguars covering. Now I had Jaguars plus 10.5 when Mahomes went down, so it's fine. But like that changes the arithmetic when you start thinking about the spread. You know, if you're a 9-point favorite and your team's down 10 and they get a fourth within field goal range, they're going to kick. They didn't used to do that.
I mean, the Chiefs led this game from.
They should have done that. Yeah, the Chiefs dominated this game. All right, so here's the bigger question about this game. On a scale of 1 to 10, Wilson, what is your concern about Patrick Mahomes' ankle moving forward in the playoffs?
Well, he told Trevor Lawrence in midfield that he's going to be fine, so I'm going to trust Patrick. And he was so freaking angry when Andy Reid he injured the ankle, and then he came off the field and got it taped up. They took the timeout, and then the next possession after they punted, he's on the sidelines, and he is as animated as I have ever seen him, other than yelling at Eric Bieniemy whenever that was early this season, talking to Andy Reid about I'm not coming out. And then they sent him to the locker room. And I'm actually sort of curious. I haven't seen any reports, and Breech, you're up on such things, so maybe you know the up to the minute. But I would imagine they went to X-ray to see if it was broken, or maybe they wanted to see if his knee, his like medial MCL was intact. I'm not sure because his knee got bent sort of funny. But then he came back out and just waited until halftime, and Chad Henne was doing fine. So I'm curious about the old TikTok, as they say, about how that all transpired. But I have zero concerns about Patrick Mahomes because he'll be getting, 24-hour treatment between now and whenever they play again Sunday, I guess, because it's going to be the championship game.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what they wanted to do was see, like, can we kind of extend this lead with Pacheco and like Kenny and maybe turn this into not a game and Mahomes sits and they get to half and Mahomes like, Andy, this is the freaking playoffs. Give me that Toradol in my leg right now, and I'm going back out there. What do you think?
Well, I think Wilson is probably kind of on the right track with, look, the traders are out there trying to save Mahomes from himself because Andy Reid would prefer to have Patrick Mahomes in there. So if he's saying, hey, man, you got to go to the locker room and you got to get checked out because I cannot in good conscience send you out there and get you beat up because you can't move around because you have a broken ankle. So they need to go make sure, like Wilson was saying, this ankle's not broken. So, yeah, you got to take him to the locker room. You got to give him the x-rays. And I'm sure Andy Reid's also thinking, all right, if we can survive the second quarter and his ankle's not broken, then he's going to be able to get out here. And so the x-rays were negative. The ankle's not broken. But to that point, even if it's a high ankle sprain, and obviously Mahomes came back in the second half and played pretty well considering.
Quickly, Breech. I don't know.
He was limping like crazy.
I don't know if you can have an ankle sprain on the. I don't know if you can have an ankle sprain when it bends inward. I actually tried to look that up, but anyway, go ahead. So I'm not sure about
that. Well, that's the thing is that what the diagnosis ends up being, because if it's a high ankle sprain, that's a tough injury to play on a 1 week recovery. If it's a regular ankle sprain, you have a much better chance he should look a little bit more mobile next week.
Just James Palmer of NFL Media, as Billy points out in Slack, Patrick Mahomes doesn't even have a boot on his foot. No wrap or boot or anything. He's wearing sneakers. This guy's a freak, man. What the hell? he's like jumping around. Like he's like playing like hopscotch the entire second half.
Or maybe the Toradol hasn't worn off yet.
That's true.
And to that point, he was limping. He was limping all over the field. So for him to not be limping at all after the game is a little weird when, why wasn't he that mobile during the game?
I think I know why.
Suggesting that Mahomes is the new who's the ultimate injury faker?
Big Ben. Ben Roethlisberger. He would act like he got hurt all the time.
Mahomes is the new Big Ben.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that I think Mahomes would have been in the locker room trying to make things look as casual as possible so that the media has nothing to report, because this is obviously going to be the talking point for the next 8 days is what's up with Patrick Mahomes' ankle. And
I like that take.
If there's a boot on it, that's
Mahomes got a second total shot just to walk out of the stadium.
Right, exactly. So
let me ask both of you this.
Don't give the media anything.
Brinson, I'll ask you first. How much do you think Isaiah Pacheco weighs?
I have no idea, but all I know is he has the most violent legs.
No, just answer the question. We'll get to that. If he's 5'10", I'll give you that part of it.
231.
Good Lord. What do you think, Breech?
I don't know. What's it running at?
205.
He's listed at 210, which is incredibly shocking because when he was coming out, I'm laughing because when he's coming out of Rutgers, he looked like he weighed like 175. He's like 5'10", 175. When he got to the combine, he weighed 210, so he might weigh more than that now. But to your point, Brinson, he does not run like he's 210, like he's 175.
Yes, he that dude's so violent.
And here's the other thing. Dude's a 7th round pick. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 1st round pick. And again, we keep going back and back to this. Running backs in the 1st round, and there's going to be running back at least one in the 1st round this time around. So you can find these guys, and when you play at Rutgers, the takeaway is, okay, you're on a bad football team.
No, but I mean, no, I'm saying like it is a little weird that like the two examples are the same team. Like, I mean, I agree with you.
What's the other example?
Draft the guy in the later rounds. Don't draft the guy in the 1st round.
Who else are you talking about?
I'm saying that like it's like Pacheco, the Chiefs drafted
and Clyde
in the 1st round. And then redrafted Pacheco in the 7th round.
Yeah, different draft, but right. I mean,
I mean,
the point is, you don't need 1st round running back.
Don't draft a running back in the 1st round ever.
Also, I say this. I've said this before during the season. I'll say it again. Pacheco was pretty ballsy to wear number 10 after Tyreek left. He looks a lot like Tyreek out there running around.
I think that the last couple of weeks, and I think that your Pacheco point is really interesting because as someone who did a ton of best ball drafts and has a ton of Jerick McKinnon. We thought last year that last year they'd lead on Jerick McKinnon in the playoffs. The Chiefs did, and we assumed that they would lead on Jerick McKinnon in the playoffs this year. But what's interesting, and I talked about this at halftime with in between the games with Joe Musso and BMAC, like Pacheco and McKinnon give them 2 different styles of runners. Like Pacheco is he's so violent running. He moves his feet more than anyone I've ever seen running the football. And McKinnon is how about that block, by the way?
Not bad.
Oh my God. 5'9". He just decleats a guy. He's a great pass blocker. He's a great pass catcher. He can run between the tackles. I think it was Musso who said it's a nice diversification of their run game for the Chiefs that makes it very dangerous in the playoffs because if they have a lead, you go to Pacheco. If you're trailing, you go to McKinnon. And that makes it really hard to defend because you don't know who Andy Reid's going to pop out there.
One person we do know that Andy Reid's going to pop out there is Travis Kelce. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see his stats. He had the 3rd most receptions in NFL playoff history, 14 catches, the most ever for a tight end in a playoff game. And this is really what baffled me about this game is that if you are Jacksonville, you literally had your defense was the worst in the NFL at stopping opposing tight ends during the regular season. So you would think that maybe you sit down and you say, here's the one guy who should not beat us, and that is Travis Kelce. We are not going to let the opposing tight end beat us because we're so crappy at stopping tight ends, and that's all the Chiefs are going to do is probably try to throw to the tight end. And what do? They let Travis Kelce beat them. I mean, he was just wide open. It seemed like on every single play, they weren't double teaming him. They weren't doing anything different. It was just insanity that they thought whatever they were doing was going to work. And they should have known by the end of the 1st quarter when he had 5 catches that it wasn't going to work. So,
instead, they doubled down and he had 10 catches at halftime.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was just unbelievable.
No, I mean, I say in Jacksonville's defense, I do this all the time. I give myself stupid reasons to defend terrible angles, but when Mahomes went out, again, this is on Jacksonville. This is not me defending like Jacksonville. When Mahomes went out, I was on a text with my buddy Justin. He's like, I was like, man, I'm a little worried about is Kelce going to get his numbers with Mahomes out? He's like, they're probably going to throw to him 4 times more often. I was like, oh God, you're right. They did. Like, if you're Jacksonville and Chad Henne is under center, bracket and triple bracket Travis Kelce. He's the one guy who's going to torch you. These other receivers are new. They're not. They don't know Chad Henne well enough to make this work. Just smother Kelce, and you probably have a chance to stop him.
Well, they didn't do it. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, I mean, the answer is
well, they have all offseason to think about it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's better to have one issue to work out instead of 50 issues to work out in the offseason. So that's a step in the right direction.
This is look, okay. So on the Jaguars real quick. Or actually, let's talk about the Chiefs matchup. So Breech. How excited are you to play the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game?
I'm not falling for that trash, Brinson. I can't even look at the AFC Championship game. The Bengals have to play the
Say
Bills.
it seriously.
All right, so the Bengals have to go to Arrowhead. Obviously, Breach. The other game will be played in Atlanta. Is that right?
Yep.
Yes.
Should the Bills win? Okay. All right. Let me give you the line, and then Breach, you can go forward. So if your team, the Bengals, win, it'll be +5.5 Cincy, similar to what it is now. Buffalo, I feel like, wins over Wilson, and then if the Bills win in a neutral site, it's going to be +2.5 Buffalo.
I think it's going to be a tough point spread for the odds makers
real
to
tough.
put out there because you don't know Mahomes' health. I mean, if you found out Patrick Mahomes wasn't playing, he's going to play. But if you found out he wasn't playing, the Bengals are probably favored. It's favored by 4 or 5. No, I'm talking about the Bengals game first.
Bengals and the Bengals.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wilson said they'd be favored. The Chiefs would be favored by 5 in Kansas City. And
5.5.
I am saying that the Bengals would be favored by 5 if Patrick Mahomes was, if Mahomes was out of the game.
No.
Wins over Wilson would have it about that number.
The
Well, we're
Bengals
going
would
with
not
wins
be
over
5-point favorites in Arrowhead, even with Patrick Mahomes out.
100%. I think 100%.
I
They
will.
would be closer to Breach. We will never know.
Okay,
Well,
so
we can email a bookmaker about it.
to this point. All right, well, you do that tonight, and we'll talk about it on tomorrow's
are you
podcast.
holding
We
your
have wins over
thing?
Wilson, who is correct all the time.
Oh, hi.
So I think if you're the Bengals or you're the Bills right now, either one of those teams, you feel really good that if you win on Sunday, that you can beat a gimpy Mahomes in neutral site if it's Buffalo or in Kansas City. So yeah, I think you're feeling really good. Both those teams, the game already meant a lot. Now it means even more because you're going to be extra confident going into the AFC title game.
You know what? You're right. I was like him and Han, but here's the thing. The Bengals already beat them last year in Kansas City. How many times? They beat them 3 times in Kansas City last
The Bengals
calendar year, right?
have beaten the Chiefs 3 times in the last calendar year.
That's what I
Since
just literally
January
what I just
1st, 2022. They've beaten
And
them
then
3 times.
Buffalo, 13 seconds game, and then they beat the crap out of them earlier this season, if I recall correctly. So yeah, no, there's no argument for me on that, and I think that makes that 5 that you're talking about even more likely. It's not going to happen if Chad.
That's pretty steep, dude.
They whooped them.
5. You think the Bengals would be favored by 5 in
Joe
Kansas
Burrow
City?
don't care. I was going to make my counterpoint was going to be, well, Breach, the offensive line sucks, and
Well, and by the way, people in the comment section seem to be confused. We're talking about the Bengals and the Bills matching up against Kansas City at this point, and the point spread for both, not just the Bengals.
right.
We're not assuming under any circumstance the Bengals with 0 healthy offensive linemen beat Buffalo in Buffalo.
To reiterate, the wins over Wilson line for the Bills Chiefs game in a neutral site Atlanta is KC -2.5.
I think I don't think that. I mean, look, I'm going to be wrong here, and
It's fine. It's not going to happen.
frankly,
It doesn't
Wilson is.
matter.
I mean, I'm scared because Wilson's been so dialed in on these lines.
Well, that was Breach's line, but what do you think it would be if Chad Henne started though? Just quickly, and then we can move on. It's not going to happen.
At KC is not Bengals -5.
Okay,
Chad
well,
Henne's like fine.
he threw 18 passes this year. He's fine. Get out.
I don't know if I'm going to answer back for this. I hit up a.
No, I-
And
What do you-
that Browns playoff game that you were talking about, he actually threw an interception and almost threw the game away. And the only
Then
thing
he
people
won the
remember, he won the game because he converted a 4th and 1 that Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy called. It was a great play call.
I'll tell you what, let's table this. I've sent out a feeler to someone who would.
I'm
be
asking you what
making
you
the
think it
line.
might be. You can make an informed judgment. What do you think the line should be?
I think it would be. Oh my god! I want to take the. If you gave me the Chiefs +5 at home,
Stop stalling, Brinson. What would your
I
line be?
think the Bengals would win the Super Bowl.
No, we're just talking, this one game with Chad Henne starting.
I think it would be
An alternate universe.
a pick.
Okay.
Pick 'em.
Yeah, that seems
5 is a lot, man.
that seems
Brady
weird, but
Reed,
you think 5's weird. All right, what's
it's
next?
a lot. Okay, so Jaguars season is over. Now I know you guys don't like to give out platitudes. Don't like to congratulate people for success for winning a bunch of games.
Oh, please.
Can we all agree that this was a successful season for the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I believe I said that literally 15 minutes ago.
I know you said it a couple weeks.
Oh, okay.
I know.
But
Don't
to add
tell
on
me for the Vikings thing. I'm saying
to add on to that, no, I can't. I think they
okay. Let me ask this a different way, because the only other answer is the 2017 AFC Championship game. Obviously,
but
I think this is the highest point of the Jaguars franchise in the last 10 years.
oh yeah, early on they were really good with Coughlin and Brunel. But right, yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah.
because they've been
Shout out Daddy Pat, R.I.P. Daddy Pat. My grandfather was the original Jaguar season ticket holder, but like they have not been good for decades. This,
Well,
if
again,
you're a Jaguars fan, you should feel really good about your future.
It goes back to Doug Peterson and Shad Khan's decision, or whoever's decision it was, to move on Urban Meyer, and then maybe Shad Khan getting out of his own way. Breech, I will say this, and then you can give your thoughts on the Jaguars. I already said that I thought they did wonderfully. What's his name? The GM of the Eagles. What's his name?
Howie Roseman.
Yeah, Howie Roseman. That dude can hire coaches. Andy Reid, Doug Peterson faced off, and then Billy's dude Nick Sirianni making those dumb faces on the sideline won as well. But Doug Peterson was the difference in allowing his quarterback to grow in year 2 and become the quarterback he has become, and who's only going to get better. I think there's a ton of reasons for optimism, Breech.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Jacksonville before this year; they'd only made the playoffs once since 2010, and that was obviously when they went to the AFC Championship in 2017. But they almost started dismantling that team right away. Plus, Blake Bortles was their quarterback, so you never felt like they had a chance at long-term success. And this is different. This is where you have younger players. Now hey, look, there are a few holes we need to go out and fill. And then they had a couple huge signings in free agency that ended up. I mean, Evan Ingram was just dynamite the entire year. Christian Kirk,
the Giants too.
Christian Kirk was pretty good, except for dropping a 50-yard bomb from Trevor Lawrence. But otherwise, so they made smart signings. Their draft picks are panning out, and that's how you build a successful franchise. And then obviously getting the head coach in there is exactly what you want to see. And don't forget, they play in the worst division in the AFC. So all you have to be is kind of good, and you're going to be competitive for quite a few years. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're a Jags fan, you have to feel the best you have felt about this franchise in probably over a decade.
Oh, by the way, it's like the last time they went to the Brunel years, as Wilson pointed out. I mean, the Colts are in disarray. The Titans just hired a new GM. The Texans, I mean, my gosh.
Are the Texans.
Yeah. I mean, the Jags could, if Trevor Lawrence is the prospect that we generally thought he would be, AKA in the mold of Luck, Manning, and Elway, the Jags could run this division for like 5 or 10 years, or 2 years, and he retires and goes to do a book club.
Which is crazy to think about, though, right?
Right. It's crazy. Like the Colts are going to run this thing for so long.
This team celebrates playoff games by going to Waffle House, and they could be running the division and going to a lot of Waffle House brunches after their wins.
Like, and I'm not, I mean, look, Wilson never dogged Trevor Lawrence. Just ask questions. No, I appreciate you off the hook, man.
I appreciate the full disclosure.
I don't want to come in here and be like, remember when Ryan Wilson questioned Trevor Lawrence? Because you didn't do that. You just were like, look, we have to ask these questions. Now, it was primarily because of Urban Meyer, who is inarguably the worst head coach in the history of the NFL. Trevor Lawrence, even with
who's worse?
Who?
No, that's not. He is. That's not even an argument.
I think you go all pro sports.
What a toxic person.
Go ahead, sorry. Somebody coached the Browns to an 0-16 record.
Dude, Urban got fired mid-season, despite the fact that he had multiple championships from college football. Grabbed somebody's ass. He grabbed somebody's ass, didn't take the flight home. He was filmed grabbing a girl's butt in his own bar in Cincinnati after a game that he didn't fly home with the team.
In Columbus. Don't confuse the cities.
Whatever. It's Ohio.
They played Cincinnati.
He kicked a kicker.
I mean, Breech, you can't even make the argument
that worst hire of all time.
That Hugh is worse than Urban.
I mean, Bobby Petrino walked out on his team and left everyone a note. I'm saying Urban Meyer is a horrible, horrible NFL head coach. I'm not disagreeing, but I'm not going to make a blanket. It's the worst.
Okay, let's pretend that this globe is Mount Rushmore.
What a globe humble brag right there.
Oh my God, why not this globe here? It's so weird. So this is Mount Rushmore. This is Urban Meyer. Down here in the Southern Hemisphere Breech, it flips, by the way. It's flushed differently. Down here is Bobby Petrino. And your boy, who's your boy? Who's the worst Bengals coach?
Oh.
Is it Shula?
David Shula.
He left coaching for like 30 years to go run a steakhouse, then try to come back and be a coach. Urban Meyer is the pinnacle of terrible coaching in the NFL. Anyway, moving on.
That's the weirdest take Breech just had in quite a while.
It's really weird.
What?
Why are you supporting?
What? That a guy who left his team notes and walked out on him could be worse? How's that a bad take?
Okay, you know what happened, Wilson? Brady texted Breech. He was like, "Are we going to do a dinner down at the Super Bowl?" And Breech's like, "Yeah, Brady, I'll be happy to keep up for Urban Meyer on the podcast.
Oh, I see where you're going with that. Yeah.
Because Brady will not talk bad about Urban Meyer because they work together.
I will say this. Petrino Breech in my book gets points for crashing on a motorcycle with his girlfriend that was his wife, and then wearing a neck brace to the press conference.
All the way across.
That actually is I consider that a positive.
Showed up in the press.
What?
Scratches all over
guys,
his face.
I would be the first person to make. I'm the guy who was in Columbus and took a picture of Urban Meyer Steakhouse and texted it to you guys because I thought it was funny. Where the whole thing.
Urban Meyer's the worst coaching hire in the history of all sports.
We agree. Breech is just being difficult. All right, go ahead. Go on.
So moving along. The Jaguars are in great shape. The Bengals are moving on. I mean, excuse me. Oh my God, I got the Bengals. There's a Freudian slip there by me. The Chiefs are moving on.
I don't think so.
And we're going to take a break, and we can come back.
We gonna move
talk
on.
about, and won't let Billy talk about the Eagles and the Giants. Next. What a beatdown. I feel like my 2017 Bills take is kind of correct. That's who the Giants are.
I'm looking forward to this season being over just so you quit making that comparison.
Well, so this is what I told you. Like when I was like, you just got to beat it into people's heads. You got to say it so many times that people are like, "Where did I hear
conspiracy
that?"
theories work.
Brinson. Now, unfortunately, when I told you to do it, you did it, and your first try was Mac Jones. So you kind of banged on that one.
You guys are.
I like Mac.
I can't wait to. We can talk about this later, but I'll just say quickly.
Mac and Bill O'Brien. Oh, baby.
His offensive coordinator was a guy who was so reviled in Detroit they had champagne when he left. And oh, by the way, he's never called offensive plays.
What
do you think was going to happen?
I like Mac Jones. I think when Bill O'Brien comes to New England, he'll be good.
I don't know if he's coming. But to your point, it's not a far off point. I don't hate it. And also I think that again the most important thing as we've come to realize yet again was the coaching. It was Sean McDermott and now obviously Brian Daboll. And I think one takeaway is that how bad was that Vikings defense? Number one, not only last week but throughout the course of the year. And number two, again, this team feels like the Jaguars breach and that they wildly exceeded expectations. And this loss, while humiliating in the moment, is probably something they can build on as they move forward in the Brian Daboll era.
I guess. I mean, if I'm Jacksonville, I feel very good about my future and about the possibility of winning division titles down the road and getting back to the playoffs. If I'm the Giants, I am very happy that I got to the playoffs. This is a successful season, but I don't know that I feel like I'm still in the same division as the Eagles. I'm still in the same division as the Cowboys, two teams that are pretty stacked right now. And so it feels like a hard division for the Giants to kind of conquer at any point over the next 5 years if they're keeping Daniel Jones or, like this core.
Would you definitely rather be the Giants, or would you rather be the Cowboys or the Giants? I would be the Giants.
Breech, you put me in a position where now twice in consecutive conversations.
I agree with Brinson.
No, if they're the Giants, you feel 10 times better about your future than you did before the season started.
Right.
So I
would rather be the Giants than the Cowboys for sure.
I sort of agree. What other than last week? What makes you feel good about the Cowboys, Breech?
What makes me feel good about the Cowboys' future?
Money. They kicked Amari to the curb for they got to pay Micah Parsons. Jerry's running things. We don't know. Like Sean Payton's creeping on their territory. I would much rather be the Giants than the Cowboys.
I feel like it's much more stable. I think is the way what Brinson's trying to say.
You guys would rather be the team that got swept by the Cowboys than the Cowboys.
Yeah,
but they weren't. They were supposed to be a 4.5 win team. The Cowboys were supposed to be a 9.5 win team. Or 10.5.
Well, here is my problem: is that this game showed that how far the Giants have to come before they're in the top tier of the division. They got smoked twice by Philly. Or they got smoked once, and then
this is exactly what happened in 2017 with the Bills, man. They got smoked in the playoffs, and then they started building around it.
And also, they can't beat the Eagles. I mean, that's been made abundantly clear. But they've been pretty good against the other teams.
The Eagles are loaded on the offensive line and defensive line, and the Giants are getting loaded on both sides.
They're getting loaded right now.
But I don't think Daniel Jones is as good as Josh Allen. And the 2017 comparison, do you know what the Bills did in 2018, Brinson?
Draft a quarterback.
They won 6 games.
So
with their rookie quarterback.
Right.
Was their coach Rex Ryan?
Okay, Wilson, are they going to draft a quarterback or are they going to sign what's the quarterback
Daniel
situation?
Jones looks good. Daniel Jones looks good.
So are you keeping Daniel Jones? Are you giving him a long-term contract?
$30 million a year for the Giants this offseason.
So, Breech, here's what I'm hearing, and I should have realized this earlier as a parent of a teenager. I apologize for not noticing this. Brinson, he's as you mentioned, half joke. He's very nervous about tomorrow, and he's taking that out of us. He's being
I am saying that, like the Giants have a lot of big questions to answer.
I am also nervous about tomorrow. I have a lot invested in the Bengals.
Or Daniel Jones had a putrid game, and you have to say, if I sign this guy to a long-term contract, can I compete in the NFC East with him as my quarterback? Can I compete for division titles? Because he went 15-27. He had a horrible game against the Eagles. He had a horrible game against the Eagles when he played them earlier this year. He wasn't good against the Cowboys in either game. I am saying, are you tying your wagon to Daniel Jones? That's all I want to know. Are you guys getting him before your
Yes.
Yeah. Prior to last week's game, and you brought this stat up more than I did, Dak Prescott had thrown interceptions in 7 straight games. He had 11 total interceptions, and then he played out of his mind last week. But what is your but?
My but, and this is also what I said last week, is that I attribute that to Dak's thumb injury because he cratered coming back from the thumb, and it was, can he recover from that thumb injury? And we only have a 1-game sample size. It says yes, so we don't know. We'll find out more on Sunday against the 49ers. But if he recovers from that thumb injury, then I feel a lot more comfortable with Dak Prescott than Daniel Jones, and it's not even close.
Well, I mean, we have a lot more, a bigger sample size of Dak Prescott than Daniel Jones. But here's the thing about Daniel Jones.
So you're taking Daniel Jones over Dak Prescott? Is that what I'm hearing, Brinson?
Say that.
Is that what I'm hearing, Wilson? Or is that what you're saying?
Is for me
the Giants
statement here. What we have here, we have a lengthy sample size of Dak Prescott with the same coaching staff over multiple years. What we have with Daniel Jones is a single year sample size compared to a multi-year sample size. In the multi-year, he sucked. It was, who were his coaches? Pat Shermer and Joe Judge. And now Brian Dable and Mike Kafka come in. And all of a sudden, Danny Dimes is slinging it. Dude, the Eagles. And look, Billy, put your fingers in your ears. We're not going to talk about the game. He's not coming on. But like the Eagles are a much better team than the Giants. They're much, much better.
Absolutely.
They got dominated. 31 points better. We saw the game.
Again, to my point about the 2017 Bills. Remember when our former colleague, Sean Bleeper
McGoober lips, yep.
Well, he refused to put Sean McDermott in his top 10 coaches because he benched Tyrod Taylor for Nathan Peterman again in 2017 against the Chargers with the Bills. He's like, you can't, like that was the breaking point. This is a really good coaching staff, a really good front office. They've hit home runs on draft picks. They lucked into a couple good picks from Dave Gettleman. Dexter Lawrence is a monster.
How dare you?
Dave Gettleman didn't need it.
Well, and real quick, I agree with all that. I agree that
the Giants are in a good place moving forward.
Brian Dable's an excellent coach. If I'm a fan of the Giants, I am happy and optimistic about the future. But Wilson said, is it similar to Jacksonville? And I said, no, I would rather be Jacksonville than the Giants.
Of course you'd rather be Jacksonville.
Yeah.
That's what I said. So why are you guys?
Every Giants fan you talk to right now will sign on the dotted line for Danny Dimes $30 million a year.
Oh,
it's the Derek Carr contract.
He's getting more than that. But yeah, no, I think that's right. Yeah, Breech, they're in different divisions, obviously. But I think the Giants is Brinson.
The worst thing you've ever had in your entire life, Breech.
No, the Urban Meyer one was worse. But the fact that, as Brinson noted, they were
worst thing of the podcast.
You guys just agreed with it. So I don't know.
Wait. To be clear, you think that? What was too bad? These are the worst takes you've had in your life.
You don't even know what my take was. So I don't know what
you defended Urban Meyer, and then you said that the Cowboys are in a better spot than the Giants.
I said that maybe Bobby Petrino was the worst coach than Meyer, and they're the top two. And then I said that I would rather be Jacksonville than New York right now. But both teams should feel optimistic.
You said you would be Dallas and New York.
No, well, yeah.
But then you amended it and said Jacksonville.
No, that's not what happened. This conversation started because Wilson was talking about Jacksonville and New York and how both fan bases should feel good about their future. That's what started. And then you asked me, and then I said
recency bias breaches recency bias is so tired.
And then I said the tough thing for New York is that their division is tougher, and then it's gonna be hard for them to catch up with the Cowboys and Eagles. And then you said that they're already caught up with the Cowboys because the Cowboys have so many questions and the Giants don't, and that you would rather be the Giants than the Cowboys. I said no, I would rather be the Cowboys.
How bad do you think Billy is really? He can't figure out how these comments keep popping up.
Here's what I'll say, Breech. And, the Jaguars, we could all agree, had a fantastic season. Brian Dable did more with less than Doug Peterson. And
Okay,
Brinson
this
sort
is
of
a
touched
good,
on
this is a
this.
good question. This is a good point.
Hold on one second.
I don't
And Brinson just touched on this. If you had Mike McCarthy coaching this Giants team, he would have gotten fired at Thanksgiving, maybe sooner.
2-win team.
Right. So you have to be excited not by the outcome tonight where they lost by 31, as you note, but the fact that he won with this crew that has some stars, but also has a lot of question marks, especially at wide receiver.
So Dan Shire, one of our great editors at CBSSports.com, and myself and Jared Dubin were talking about this on Twitter. And he's like, Dable has to be the favorite to be the coach of the year. And my point was, I don't think he is the favorite to be coach of the year, and not because he shouldn't be, but because I think everyone will vote for Kyle Shanahan or Sirianni. Like this coach of the year ballot is insane. Picking 3 guys like your top 3 coach of the year is tough, man. There are a lot of Andy Reid deserves love. He trades Tyreek Hill and he wins the division. Is rolling. I think Sean McDermott deserves love. You got Doug Peterson, Nick Sirianni, Jeff Saturday. We're talking about a who's who of great coaches, guys.
You can get the Urban Meyer Award. All right, Breech, you get the last word on the losers, and then we'll move over to the winners.
No, I mean, we already said it. I think if you're the Giants, you should be extremely optimistic. The team played out of its mind all season. Your head coach is the best head coach you have had since Tom Coughlin. It's been a while since that team's had any success, and obviously Giants fans should be thrilled because the structure is there to be successful going forward. And that's all you can ask for when you haven't made the playoffs since 2016. And it'd been 6 years and you sat through all these losing seasons of 3-13 and 4-13 and 6-10. It's like, oh my God,
Who
Brian Dable. What?
The Giants with the 2 Super Bowls in the last 20 years. Yeah, it's tough scene.
Well, you said after Tom Coughlin, Joe Judge.
They got these Giants fans, these New York sports fans are ridiculous. They're like, oh, it's been so long since we've had a title. Meanwhile, Breech is willing to do things that we can't say on this podcast to win a Super Bowl.
But once you tasted it, it's worse that you have to go longer without it because you've had the taste and now you're not getting back to it.
What are you talking about? They have these Yankees fans, Giants fans have 27 World Series. They have 2 Super Bowls in the last 25 years. They're like, oh, it's been so long. Breech,
well, I'm talking about if you're a Bengals fan or a Browns fan or a Cardinals fan or something, you don't know what you're missing. You're just thinking, I'm just living life. I don't know a Super Bowl win. What is
it? What is the date today?
January 21st. Maybe
you won't take that
past
Christmas
midnight. You asked me that as the clock hit midnight. Was this a trick question, Brinson?
It was actually. I planned that out in the rundown. You won't take that Christmas tree down until the Bengals lose. And it's not for a bit for the podcast. It's entirely superstitious because you will do anything in your life to get the Bengals a Super Bowl win. Meanwhile, these Giants fans are like, I guess we have to deal with Danny Dimes finally getting us to the playoffs. Come on, guys.
So let me tell you my Eagles story real quick.
Ooh.
I picked the Giants to cover this game. I don't even remember what the spread was. Clearly, it could have been 30, and I still would have lost. What was it?
7.5 or 8.
7.5. I thought the Giants were going to build on the momentum of beating the planet, the galaxy's worst defense last week. It clearly didn't happen. I thought, and I mentioned this to Billy before we started podcasting, I said, I thought maybe Jalen Hurts would be a little rusty, maybe a little tight with a shoulder injury. Sirianni's a young coach. I thought the team might be tight. All those things went out the window. After about 5 plays, we all knew how this was going to play out. It wasn't going to be a charging situation. It wasn't going to be Patrick Mahomes gets hurt situation and maybe the Jags hang around. It was going to be an ass whooping, and that's exactly what it ended up being. So I'm going to pull a Breech with the Cowboys and completely do a 180 on the Eagles. I have no concerns about this team. Thankfully, Breech, you mentioned a few days ago, I forgot because I can't remember last week, much less back in August. My preseason Super Bowl prediction was KC versus Philadelphia Eagles.
No, that was your midseason. That was your November 1st.
Oh, okay. Either way, I'm taking it, and thank God that the Eagles played well.
So Billy, Gleam is, Billy wasn't even around when I, a lifelong Eagles fan, jumped on this bandwagon, became an Eagles fan. My ticket is 38-1 Eagles to win the Super Bowl. 38-1 for the Eagles. That's crazy. They look like the best team in the NFC.
So if they do win, I feel like you should just split all the money with the podcast listeners.
That's a great idea.
I'll tell you
at least buy Billy dinner since he's an Eagles fan.
Split it with me.
I'll tell you, here's what I'll do. Here's what we'll do. We'll create a fake Pick Six podcast roulette table. Billy can be the green tab. If it lands, and you have no control of this, by the way, Billy. I will make sure that you have this is randomized, and we'll give out numbers for the podcast listeners, and whoever hits it, I'll give them a chunk of the change. If it's a green, which it won't, don't worry, you can have it. By the way, my best bet of the week: Jalen Hurts under rushing yards, 50.5. I thought that actually this is. I would have brought you in, but you already brought yourself in. I thought that it was like interesting how you could see that Sirianni and the coaching staff and Hurts were like, look, we're winning this game if we just execute. Do not get hurt. Whatever you do, do not put that shoulder at risk. You go out there, you run the offense. If you see a defender, you go down. Do not take a hit because you're going to have 1 week to prepare for the next game. And then if we win that game, you got 2 weeks. Like it was very, very, very clear to me that they did not want Jalen Hurts to take a shot to the shoulder, right?
I mean, I think so. I think, I don't know. I think they kind of played.
He dropped behind the line of scrimmage. He's clearly.
Well, I mean, there's no need to take a hit when you don't need to. And I think it was a situation where like they treated it as they did all year. Yeah, they want.
But no, it's not. It's a compliment to Sirianni and the staff. They understood the situation and they game planned as such to make sure that Jalen Hurts wouldn't be dealing with a shoulder injury leading into the NFC Championship game. It's a flex on the Giants.
But I don't think they did anything different because in the red zone, Jalen Hurts rushed for 11 yards and trucked a guy and got the first down. So I think it was. They were leaving it up to Jalen's discretion. Like, if you need to run, but always protect yourself. Protect yourself as much as you can. I don't think that they changed anything. Like, I don't think it was like any new scheme. I think they just carried it how they did all season.
I don't think they changed the scheme. I think they're like, listen, you don't need to truck stick some dude. Like, just go down. If you see a defender, go down. We're gonna beat the shit.
Okay.
Oh my God.
So Billy, let me ask you this: what did you learn about the Eagles in this game? Because this game was over after 2 series.
Yeah,
I think. For me personally, I learned how good of a coach Nick Sirianni is. Like getting his guys ready to play after a week off, and I mean, not all teams can do that. Not all coaches can get their team prepared and ready. And we've seen the Eagles.
By the way, as a second place Super Bowl draft winner, C-Rad points out, he didn't have to run. That's the whole point.
I mean, yeah, tonight he didn't necessarily have to run, but I mean, let's look back to when Jalen Hurts was going through the pre-draft process and he was having that conversation with Steve Mariucci and he was talking about getting freaky. The whole Eagles team tonight got freaky. Like you can talk about 3 different players on the Eagles offense scoring three touchdowns. You could also talk about the defense getting an interception and also getting 5 sacks, which is the most sacks they've gotten in a postseason game.
I want you to be my hype man when I come into like the ring for a WWE match.
No, but I'm
unbelievable. You're talking about sacks. You talking about I said this 3 times this week on HQ. Wilson, I don't know if it was a GM or a scout or whoever said it. Hurts coming out of the Big 12. And I cited you every time, just so you
know. Thank you.
The best running back out of the Big 12, but it's not an insult. He's so physical. But I'm telling you, they clearly did not want him to re-injure his shoulder because they know if you get past the Giants, who are a luck box, you got 2 games, and one of those games is a bye. And you can just run the living crap out of Jalen Hurts in the run scheme that no one can stop. They did not want him to get injured tonight.
I mean, I don't disagree. They obviously did not, they didn't want him to get injured. But at the same time, Miles Sanders was able to run all over this team. Boston Scott, my prop bet of, Boston Scott, anytime touchdown hit, you're welcome, everyone. I hope you took it.
Yeah, thanks for saying that to the entire. Who'd you
I did say that on the bet show, and you said it as well. It came out of your mouth. I don't know if you remember, but
I don't remember much.
You said it. Yeah, it's all good. Sully took it too. I slacked Sully earlier when Boston Scott cleared.
I might have taken it. Look.
No, but I mean, it was a great performance from the whole team, and I mean, maybe Nick Sirianni had some Jodeci or some or something playing in the locker room tonight because they was getting freaky. Like they was getting freaky on the field. It was really nuts. I don't know if you know about Jodeci. Well, I mean, I think Ryan should probably.
Billy, I think I'm a little more old school than you are, pal.
Yeah. I don't know about that one. No, but it was a good performance from the Eagles.
Eagles look really good.
One thing real quick about Jalen Hurts, though, is that, and we were talking about how week 18 that they weren't running their RPOs, they weren't running their normal offense because that was the week where they weren't trying to get Jalen Hurts injured. But this week, it felt like they let him run. They wanted him to run, or as Billy was saying, if you want to go run, do it, but don't be crazy. Don't take any hits, because he did have two kind of key runs on the first two possessions. And it was almost as if he did that just so the Eagles were saying, hey, no, Jalen might run, because the Giants weren't worried about that the first week when he's coming back in week 18, because it was like, they're not going to run. They don't want him to get injured. But now, hey, look, Jalen Hurts is running. He had a 9-yard run on the second possession. He had a 6-yard run on a second 11 on the first possession. So now the Giants do have to worry about it when they weren't sure if they were going to have to worry about it, because they weren't sure if, the Eagles were going to risk his health.
What's insane too, by the way, is like the line on Caesars was over 8.5 rushing attempts, minus 163. And he rushes for 9 times. Like how the hell, like how the hell does Vegas lock in over 8.5 minus 1? No one's betting the over there, and no one's betting the under, and it ends up on the exact number. That is crazy.
Vegas is sick, man. I took Travis Etienne receiving yards over at 18.5. He had 18 receiving yards.
I had the under. I had the under.
I just don't understand it. I don't understand how they do it.
Well, I had the under on that. What was the? Did he have two? I had under 2.5 catches too. Ah, sugar. He had 3.
So let me ask you guys something. Like Eagles' performance, yeah, they obviously dominated, yes. But how does this performance and how does this team rank up to either the Cowboys or the 49ers? Like, I mean, so, me personally, I just feel like I'm not really worried.
The Eagles with a fully healthy Jalen Hurts are clearly the best team in the NFC. Now, I think it's a really close. I think the Niners are close. If Purdy plays a great game, if the Eagles will beat the living crap out of the Cowboys if they show up.
Can Purdy play like that in Philadelphia in a hostile environment?
Stop. Come on,
can
man.
he do that? I mean, it's a legitimate question.
Nick Foles played like that in Minnesota against Tom Brady.
The Eagles have 10 straight wins against the Giants at home. Daniel Jones cannot win in the city of Philadelphia. So, like,
who's the biggest hype man in the history of like WWF? Like Billy is like an
Jimmy Hart.
Yeah. You're Jimmy Hart. Oh my God, you're a younger Jimmy Hart.
But to Billy's point, Brock Purdy really hasn't been tested as far as like facing a team as good as Philadelphia. And the games he has won, the 5 teams he's beaten have a combined record of 35, 49, and 1. So
yes, but
not ideal competition.
But like the difference is we're not talking about this. Like remember the I don't know, Billy, you're probably too young for this. You probably weren't born, but Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017, and they put on these dog masks. They're underdogs, but I'm sure you watch films of it later. So the Vikings show up, and it's like, oh, Kirk Cousins can definitely hang with these guys, and they get obliterated. And I think that Brock Purdy could get obliterated, except the scheme for the 49ers and the coaching around there is the difference maker, and the Niners defense can limit I think an Eagles 49ers game. I'll tell you what, you make the line. What's the line for Eagles 49ers NFC Championship game if the Niners make it past the Cowboys? By the way, if the Cowboys win, it is a hammer jack on the freaking Eagles to obliterate the Cowboys.
I think actually the line would be very similar to tonight. I think it'd be like 7.5.
Are you nuts? What are you talking about?
No. I'm talking about if
Cowboys or
49ers. No, 49ers.
What?
49ers.
Wilson, explain to him how lines work.
It would be 7.5.
Even Breech has had a bunch of cold takes today.
You're an idiot if you think the Eagles be minus 7.5 against the 49ers in Philly. That is the worst take. There have been so many bad takes in this podcast for like 5 years.
If they blow out the Cowboys, you don't think that could happen if they blow out the Cowboys?
If the Niners beat the Cowboys and then go
I'm
to
not
Philly,
saying the Niners are getting the points. I'm saying the Eagles are getting the points. I'm saying that
the Eagles will not be minus 7.5. The Eagles will be at most minus 3. That is the absolute max.
Yeah,
wins over Wilson.
Half?
Wins over Wilson was going to say minus 3.5.
I will buy a human from like an illegal black market and bet that on the Niners plus 7.5.
That's a little dark, but okay.
I don't even know how you do that. I gotta
You
talk to
know,
some people.
you don't just say that accidentally.
Right. You don't. He
By the way,
knows.
Here's what I want to say about the 49ers. stuff.
7.5.
All right, let it go. One of the other things, and Breech and Billy both touched on, Brock Purdy hasn't really been tested. We'll find out. Brinson, you mentioned Shanahan and all the magic he's done, and there's no disputing that. But this Eagles defense is going to be the toughest defense that Brock Purdy might have the occasion to face should they beat the Cowboys, and that could be an equalizer, because while maybe they have an advantage in terms of play calling slightly over the Eagles, I think the Jalen Hurts being healthier helps. All the offensive weapons that the Eagles have help. The Eagles' offensive line will help neutralize that defense.
Eagles are 100% favored,
but not by 7. It'll be minus 3.5 is wins over Wilson. As
they got a backup quarterback, man.
It's either 2.5 or 3.5.
Breech, how many backup quarterbacks have won an NFC Championship?
And NFC
Nick Foles.
No, sorry. Rookie backup.
Rookie. There you go. 0.
But that's my thing, though. That's why I said that the line would be at where it is, because it's backup quarterback.
Look, I've made bad lines I've made many a bad line in my day, Billy. That's a bad line. It's fine. It is either 2.5 or 3.5.
Billy doesn't have his own proprietary system in place, like wins over Wilson. So we got to go with
professional, man. I'm not a professional.
It may be the weirdest thing that's ever happened in this podcast is that like Ryan Wilson is somehow are you using a spreadsheet for this? You're just like doing it in your head, right?
Yeah, you should make it up.
By
the way, this is worth mentioning, and Bob Swirsky mentions this in the comments, and whatever, I'll own it. I don't care. And I think he's sort of half joking, half serious. I'm old enough to remember when Wilson thought the 49ers should think about firing Shanahan. Shanahan was doing a lot of crazy stuff. It must have been last season. I don't think it was this season, right?
No, and you guys were it was last season. You guys were murdering me for like being like, you guys were like, it's time to be done with Kyle Shanahan.
He was doing a lot of crazy stuff.
That was the 49ers went 6-10 in
guys. You were killing me.
2020, and then they started off like 2-4 in 2021, and it was
Breech. Do you remember when I wanted to take the Rams to win the Super Bowl, but you walked me off of them and put me on the 49ers? And then you guys spent the entire first half of the season killing me for taking the Niners. Nice try. You guys were murdering me. You guys were like, Kyle Shanahan's got to go. Lynch has got to go.
And then a quarterback fell in their lap. Like they were going to leave the best quarterback. Yeah, with the last pick in the draft. No one plans to ever play the last pick in the draft. That's a break glass in case of emergency quarterback.
So
and that's what happens when you lose 2 quarterbacks.
The entirety of the Patriots dynasty is an accidental luck job.
I mean, kind of.
No, could you say that out loud real quick?
There's no luck about Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. The fact that Tom Brady ended up starting a game, yes, that was luck. Belichick had no plans to start Tom Brady until Drew Bledsoe got hurt.
The entire Patriots dynasty is
the first year. The first year.
Say that
first
right
year.
Say that right now.
Why? What happens if he said? Then what's
we're going to clip it on Twitter and light Breech up. That's what
Brinson, Bill Belichick never planned to play Tom Brady. It's not that complicated. In 2001, that was never the plan.
Everyone
it took a quarterback injury.
Something stupid that will be like socially viral.
The 49ers getting Brock Purdy and having him be a success is like getting a hoopty for your first car and it lasts for 20 years.
I like Brock Purdy before his last year at Iowa State. I think he was actually in my first round with Jake Fromm when I had him number 1 overall. Seriously, Brock Purdy was a legit prospect 2 years ago.
No, yeah, I mean, but he was the last pick in the draft.
Wilson, come on, Wilson, you got to throw me about here.
No, I've been saying that for weeks.
I know I've heard it, but no one's listening because
again.
they don't care about the draft right now because they care about the playoffs. But Brock Purdy, before his last year at Iowa State, was like considered a first-round fringe prospect.
Yes, no, I've said that several times in this podcast.
Okay, but I understand you know that, but I don't think that. Thanks for that.
And I don't know what. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason. To Billy's point, there's a reason he was Mr. Irrelevant. To Breech's point, there's a reason that Tom Brady was 199. I mean, Shanahan's system has a lot to do with it. But again, sort of like the Trevor Lawrence thing, it's okay to wonder why Shanahan's doing the things he's doing when they're losing football games they shouldn't lose, and they're giving up all the stuff they're giving up to make the team better, and it seems to be going in the other direction. Now, granted, Shanahan has crushed it without a doubt. And I get it. If they win the Super Bowl, just like the Rams, it won't matter if they win 2 games next year because you won the Super Bowl. That was the point. But I think in the moment, it's okay to be like, yo, this doesn't seem to be working out. Why aren't you doing something differently?
Well, I think, to the Brock Purdy, Tom Brady comparison, and I'm not trying to say Brock Purdy is Tom Brady, but the one thing that the 2 things Brock Purdy does really, really well, he makes good decisions and he makes the decisions quickly. Like he recognizes where the ball needs to go. He's a point guard. He's Jason Kidd. He distributes the ball very quickly. He's Steve Nash. He's not a scoring point guard. He is a distributing point guard. That is his job. And people are like, oh, he throws the ball to CMC at the line of scrimmage. Who gives a crap? He knows exactly where the ball is supposed to go with the blocking scheme designed to get CMC open, and CMC makes the decisions. He gets the ball to Debo where he needs to go. He gets the ball to Ayuk. Like, it's okay to be every quarterback is in the system. No one's a system quarterback. Everyone is a system quarterback. Like,
who are you preaching at right now? I'm just curious.
Anyone, I like to preach.
He's on the soapbox.
Okay. Thank you, Billy. Yeah, I'm on the soapbox.
I wondering if you're yelling at us or just yelling into the.
I actually forgot we were podcasting for a second.
That's fine.
Can you give Lane Johnson some love too? Playing with
Lane Johnson's a stud, dude.
I mean, playing with that oblique injury is not an easy thing to do, and
he's
to go out there and really hold Kayvon Thibodeau in check and not allow a sack again. That guy's playing out of his mind. That guy's a warrior. That guy's a one-of-one offense.
I think the Eagles 49ers, like, if it happens, Cowboys could win. If the Cowboys win, Eagles are in the Super Bowl. They're gonna obliterate the Cowboys if they get in the championship game. If it's Niners, Eagles, that is going to be a really epic NFC Championship game. That's going to be fun to watch.
Brinson, you got to relax with the Eagles are going to obliterate the Cowboys. Like,
dude,
I just feel like you're just jinxing us, and like I'm
holding the Cowboys ticket. I'm holding the Eagles ticket, bro. Like I'm rooting.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, internally as an Eagles fan, like, it never goes how it's supposed to go.
Let me ask,
one time that it's really going the way it's supposed to go, and it didn't go the way it was really supposed to.
Let me ask Breech a question since he's our resident Cowboys homer. What do you think the line is, Breech, on a Eagles Cowboys game? And then I have a follow up.
Eagles by 3.
Oh, that seems sort of low. Brinson, what do you think it is?
4.5 or 5.
I was going to say 6.5.
Yeah, I'm pounding the.
But here's the other thing that I need to mention, and it informs Breech's talking points throughout the course of this podcast. As I check our Super Bowl pool update sheet, Brinson, you're down to one team because your Jaguars lost. You have the Eagles.
Who's that team, by the way?
The Eagles, as I just said. But here's what you need to know. Breech's teams remaining, the Bengals, of course, and the Dallas Cowboys. That's why he's talking the way he's been talking. He needs the Cowboys to get to the Super Bowl.
2000 back in full effect.
So now we came to the crux of the issue.
You don't find that suspicious?
And also has one team left, the Chiefs. And our listener, Caleb, down to the Bills and 49ers, going head-to-head with Caleb.
Bills and 49ers are such a good poll.
Yeah, that's a good call there, Caleb.
Man.
Yeah, I was a little worried when Patty Mahomes went down.
One thing about this game, though, that I feel like we didn't really touch on is that it felt like the game was over after the Eagles went up 14-0, and that happened because the Giants had their failed 4th down. And
what were your thoughts on that at the time, Breech, at the 40?
Well, what would you have done? I mean, that was a big situation. You have Brian Dable making a huge decision, and 4th and 3. That's one thing. But then on 3rd and 3, Daniel Jones takes a sack, loses 5 yards, so now it's 4th and 8.
See, I like the recognition of I am completely overwhelmed by a better team. I'm going for gusto and YOLO. But he knew they weren't likely to win that game. So you have to like F it. Like, let's go right here. If we get it, maybe we flip the momentum. Brian Dable, I mean, I don't know who's your coach of the year. It's a really tough pick. Obviously, our vote didn't matter, but I mean, my goodness.
Well, to answer Breech's question though, like when you're going against an MVP candidate, you got to kind of take chances.
He's not really a candidate.
I mean, he is. So
he's no, he's not really. But.
I mean, he's a candidate.
He took chances, but then Giants fans were sort of upset towards the end of the game where he just kept running the clock out and punting the ball. So it felt like that. To Breech's point, that was the game for him. And then he's like, you know what? Let's see if we get home quickly.
And that was weird. He was punting down in the 4th quarter, but he went for it on 4th and 8 in that situation. I do think he made the right decision. But if you're Daniel Jones, who got sacked there by Hassan Reddick, You cannot take a sack on 4th down. Just throw it up. If it's interception, it's interception. Like, you cannot take a sack. Who is getting sacked?
I do
fourth down.
think there's something like interesting to be thought about that approach late. Like what was the score? 31. It was 31-0, then 31-7, or was it 28-7?
It was 28-7, and then
the game was over, right?
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, if you're Brian Dable, if you're a smart coach, there's no like what if Daniel Jones tears his ACL?
Oh, again, you're the most cautious person on planet Earth.
It's not cautious. Do people sit people out the preseason all the time? What do you? I understand your.
It's not the preseason, Brinson. This is
a
the
playoff
They
playoff.
weren't
game.
winning the game, guys.
Slightly different magnitude.
They
He
weren't
didn't play
playing
in
the
week
game.
18.
You can't bench him.
He didn't play in week
I'm not
18 for
saying
that
bench
reason.
him. I'm saying like you're coaching. You know that you're in the spot. You're down 4 touchdowns with a quarter left. You're not winning the playoff game. It's over. You had a great season. You
Good thing
coached
Doug
the team up.
Peterson doesn't think like you. Oh my God.
No, I mean, what are we doing here?
What are you talking about? What's your example there?
They were down
last week.
27-0, and they came
They're
back
down
and won.
27-7.
Before
It's
that, they were
3
down
scores,
27
first
to
of all.
nothing.
And the Giants were down 28-7. That's also 3 scores, Brinson.
You play to win the game.
Brinson got Herman.
The Giants were dead, man. The Giants. Everyone knew the Giants.
All right,
Hey, look, if you know
one's
balls,
benching,
you know the
no one
Giants
on
were
planet
dead.
Earth except you is benching Daniel Jones there. So it's not
I'm
what
not
we're
saying
talking
In a
about.
playoff game.
I'm saying avoid. Like, you don't want your stars getting hurt,
He didn't get hurt.
dude.
He's not a star though.
The
Brinson, can you
Giants-
say that so we can put it on Twitter? You should bench your stars in a playoff game.
Look, the Giants are not. The Giants were not winning a Super Bowl this year. The Giants are
Not with that
trying
attitude.
to build a roster and to build a culture and to prepare for the future.
Dude, you would last 45 seconds, maybe
You tore
60
your
seconds
ACL in an old man soccer game
as a
Get the
general
F outta
manager
here, man. What
because
are
you were
talking
benching
about?
everyone after the first 2 series of every game, and you're out there with all the NC State scrubs, the 4th and 5th teamers.
Oh, man, there's
playing the whole game.
I'm gonna. We're gonna end this podcast. I'm gonna go dig up your bad takes and just go Tar Heels.
There it
That's
is.
all right. That's it. It's over. Show's over. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. F Wilson, F Billy, F Breech. I'm out.